The Financial Huddle does not provide tax, legal, financial, or other professional advice. Listeners are encouraged to consult with their own advisors in these areas.
All right, everybody, huddle up. The play calls in. This is the Financial Huddle. Ready?
Break. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome our huddlers to our next episode of our podcast, the Financial Huddle.
Huddle Nation. Let's go, everybody.
Right back at you.
Let's get after it.
Yes. But there's a certain smell in the air. It's that time of the year.
Uh-oh.
Favorite time. As you can see here, I'm boasting my hometown, Cleveland Brownies.
You're repping.
Smells like football.
It smells. That's right. You can
Great
smell
time of
that in the air, you know. And obviously here, based in Central Ohio, and we got the Buckeyes, and you know, I'm going to have to live through. I'm afraid maybe the pain and misery of the Cleveland Browns again this year. But
this is the year.
It's always the year.
Yeah.
It is always the year.
8-8.
Don't forget about our Baldwin Wallace Yellow Jackets.
Oh yeah, all right.
Too,
Shout out to the West Side BW.
That's right.
There you go, buddy.
Your son's going to be senior this year,
Senior
right?
this year.
Both of your boys.
Tight end. Yeah, my boy too.
That's right. That's right.
Mine are well through that process, but you know, mine are at the point of I've been talking about it before. I got one down.
One to go, right?
Daughter married.
Let's go. Congrats, man.
Paid for. Now, son coming up here in a week or two.
Oof.
So let me tell you one thing through this process and all the planning, you know, although I wasn't exactly intimately involved with the planning, my role was to, you know, take that pen and stroke that check.
Daddy Warbucks. So,
you know, it's gotten to a point where, you know, I'm pulling out my pockets and looking to see if I got anything in there.
You're light?
I'm pulling out mothballs and not quite sure.
You're light?
If I got any money, I got to check my accounts and make sure I got any money left.
You guys remember back in the day, Wendy's, where's the beef?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Bank account's a little light.
Yeah, where's my money? Where's my money?
Yeah.
So hopefully this is just a one-time event, right? It happens once.
That would be that'd be excellent.
That's the perfect story.
That'd be excellent.
Yeah. So what I hear you're saying, bank account's a little bit light. I'm light, not necessarily in the wallet, but just energy. So signed up for the nationwide half marathon. And
no, thank you.
Yeah. And so I say that many times.
Well, that wasn't very smart.
Yeah. Well, that might have been Jamie and I doing this together. And for those of you who don't know, Jamie's my wife. And we train, and it is comical because we get out in the neighborhood, and she's at the point where she just dusts me. And it's even better when the neighbors see it, and they're driving by, and they're honking and giving the old, trucker symbol. And when she is a good 100 to 200 yards ahead of me, and that's after she's come back and said hi, and then she's gone again. So the process has not been as well as I would have hoped.
Yeah, sounds like you didn't have a great plan leading up to the training.
Oh, I had a plan. It was the execution.
It's following through on that plan. Wow, that makes sense.
Yeah, we followed through. It's just, we talked maybe a little bit about age and knees, and, as you get a little bit older, it's not as smooth as I would have liked.
The good thing about a plan, most plans, is you can actually pivot and change, as needed. So it sounds like maybe you need to step it up a little bit, brother.
Either step it up or step down the distance,
or just run slower. I mean, that's always something you can do.
How about just don't run at all,
or don't run at all?
I can't think of anything much worse than taking on a half marathon. No way. But I give you credit, man. I give you guys.
I did it last year. I finished. Trying to do it again. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, him and I will be on the sides clapping.
You gonna clap for me?
That's about it.
You gonna clap for me?
That's all you're
something
gonna
to drink when I get past. If
I'll throw some water at you.
I appreciate that.
We'll see what happens.
Back when I was a younger whippersnapper, God made me like anaerobic, like short, quick bursts. Done. I can't even imagine running a mile, to be honest with you right
90
now.
feet, right?
That's all I need, brother.
90 feet.
So what you're telling me is you're kind of like the group Jackson Brown, right? You're running on empty. You have no money. You have no energy left. That's a good song, by the way. But
it is.
That's what I'm thinking about over here.
Or cartilage.
Or you're running low on cartilage.
Running on empty.
Oh man! All right, well, let's give the listeners at least some financial literacy, like we promised, right? We get this question asked all the time. You may be thinking about this, whether you're driving down the car or you're watching us here today. There's a lot of research out there, a lot of evidence, a lot of statistical data that consistently shows that the number one fear of pre-retirees, whether they're low income, low asset, or wealthy,
And retirees.
absolutely is running out of money.
Yep. Will I run out of money?
I mean, that supersedes like even death in a lot of cases. And so what we thought we'd do today is talk a little bit about that. And you know me, I like to bring a little statistical analysis.
Stat man, that comes from that baseball background.
Yeah,
Love the stats.
Love the stats, right? RBIs and WAR against replacement. Those crazy stats. But in all seriousness, this is a concern that really provides a lot of worry to a lot of our clients. And it goes back to an episode we did about the fiduciary standard, is that, we have a fundamental obligation by law to help ease this worry for our clients. And that's no easy task. But just to give people a little bit of an idea, studies, reputable organizations like Transamerica Center for Retirement Studies, Gallup, they've all found variations in this idea of running out of money. Back in 2023, Allianz Life, which is a global company, they did a study that found that 61% of Americans' top retirement worry was outliving their savings. A year prior to that, in 2022, there was a survey done by Insured Retirement Institute. They reported that 7 in 10 retirees feared depleting assets more than they did dying. There's been a lot of research through Stanford Center on Longevity, and they've done a lot of things that show that this fear is often intensified by things like living longer, right? We all know that we're living longer, rising healthcare costs, and an insidious risk that faces so many people is just like long-term care and uncertainty about Social Security. Oh, yeah. So these things are real. The fear is widespread, and it tends to be a little bit more intense on the lower income, lower asset. But like I said, you could have very high income, high net worth, wealthy families that are fearing that too. Yeah. Long-term care, I think, really hits those people as far as the fear of running out of money. And even
more so, kind of the middle income is really the group that, if they're not worried about it, I hate to say this, they should be.
100%. And I would bet a lot of money that everybody that's listening here today or watching us has thought about that in some capacity. If they're serious about their money, it just has to be a topic. I know it has been for me. And one thing the audience might find interesting is my entire career. This is my 18th year in this industry. I've focused a lot on, as you guys know, the financial aid and admission system, helping people, helping families navigate paying for college and not having it back up into retirement. And, I always say in my workshop presentations that I don't think you can plan for one without the other. I don't think they're mutually exclusive of each other, right? What you do today and how you plan to pay for your kids' college education or how you invest into that college education has a direct correlation on potentially your retirement as an adult or the kids' retirement, right? And so I always say that, college planning is a retirement issue. And one of the things that we help our clients do all the time is avoid wealth transfers. We talk about this, and for our listeners out there, if you don't know this, a wealth transfer is money that you unknowingly or unnecessarily give away throughout the course of your lifetime. And if we do that too many times in our lifetime, fellas, we're going to have a lot less money in retirement, much less are we going to run out of money in retirement. Right. So, with that being said, I thought those stats were interesting. I think we probably struck a chord. But Brian, you, like we've said before, you deal with a lot of people that are staring retirement like in the face, like right now. You do a lot of Social Security planning, taxes and retirement planning. And these people might be 62, 65 years old, and they're ready to take Social Security. They've got all these assets they've accumulated, and they're looking at you saying, am I going to make it? Right. So,
or do I have enough?
Do I have enough? Right. Or like we've talked about before, like, what's my number? What do I got to have? Right. So maybe just discuss a little bit of that and help educate our listeners as to like, okay, what do you do? What are some like major things that they need to be considering to make sure they don't run out of money?
Yeah. How do we address and ease those fears?
Yeah.
Which everyone has.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You guys said it earlier, regardless of if you have a little bit saved or if you have a lot. People that are good savers have a fear of, man, can I spend what I work so hard?
Right.
We've seen this quite a bit.
Yeah.
Working with the people that we do. And so people will ask, what can I do? Can I retire? Back to the question of, am I going to run out of money? And so there's things that we talk about. First and foremost, you got to know what you're going to spend in retire. What's your lifestyle, right? If you can't tell me what your lifestyle is, I can't answer that question for you.
Your desired lifestyle.
That's right. Your desired lifestyle. Can you have a desired lifestyle, or is your lifestyle just going to be, I got to keep the lights on?
I have found that most people they don't know how to answer that question.
They don't. A lot of people do not know.
They're quiet. They're like, I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Well, and a lot of times those people, are going back and looking at their parents or grandparents and thinking, okay, when I retire, I'm not going to spend nearly as much. And the reality is,
It's a misnomer.
we live a much more active lifestyle. If life expectancies are going up, health, and technology, medical technology, people are living a healthier lifestyle.
Yeah.
Which leads directly into living a longer life. So guess what? You're not going to spend 50 to 60% of your pre-retirement income. You're going to need, in most cases,
80 to 100.
80 to 100.
Yeah, and for our listeners out there, I think this is actually a really practical question to ask yourself, all right? And we ask our clients this all the time, all right? As you think about this, you need to be asking yourself, if you could live the same standard of living that you are today, adjusted for inflation, from now until your retirement age and from retirement to your life expectancy, would you want that? Yes or no? And that at least puts a barometer, it puts a benchmark as to like, where's the starting point?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And even more so, I'm having more conversations of, hey, I'm retiring, I'm still in good health. I don't know how long that's going to last. I want to bump up over 100%.
The go-go
we want
years.
to, we want to
The go-go
go
years.
do stuff.
Yeah.
Go-go years versus the no-go.
Yeah.
So let's say you get to the point where, okay, you're starting to distribute.
Yeah. So first of all, you have to understand, what do you want? Because what do you have in retirement that you didn't have when you were working? You got time.
Yeah.
Right? You got neighbors that are also retired, and they're like, you know what? We're going to go do this thing. Do you want to come? I didn't think about that, but if you're going, of course so you have to build that in. You have to build what is your dream, what is the kind of the wants that you have in retirement.
Sure.
So when you start to figure that out of, okay, here are the wants, here are the vacations, here's the deck that I need to build, because now that I'm home and I look at it every day, I want to redo it. Once you get those things figured out, now you got to have a plan. How do you do that? So as you start to figure those things out, how do you put that plan together? You talked about Social Security. So let's say Social Security, you got to figure out, when do you decide to file for that? Do you do it early? Do you do it at full retirement age? Do you wait? Figuring that out, and then what is your income gap? And then just me saying that, some people have probably got a little anxiety to go, how do I figure out that distribution plan?
Well, a lot of people don't even think Social Security is going to be there.
Yeah, that's a whole nother topic.
That's right.
We can do a couple episodes.
We can do a
on that.
couple episodes. I think, especially for those in that demographic, I'm not worried about it. I think it'll be there. But there's still, for most people, an income gap. How do you fill that income gap, even if you do file for your Social Security? How do you plan for taxes? What people don't realize is taxes is the number one expense you're going to have in retirement.
RMDs, the rising tax environment.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that is the number one expense that a lot of people don't realize. It's, when you think about it, it's like, yeah, that's logical, but people
taking
don't realize,
distributions from all those qualified pre-tax accounts that you built up over your lifetime.
Absolutely. And then so security is going to be taxed and all of those things. So then when you figure out, what do I need to take after my Social Security, where do I take those from? Do I take it from this tax bucket? And what kind of account do I need to take it from? One of the things that we talk to our clients a lot about is this thing called sequence of returns risk. What is sequence of returns risk? That is taking money from an account that has lost value because of a bad market. Now, some people don't think that's significant, but let's say you had $1 million and now the market dropped 15 or 20%. Well, that $1 million that you had is now 850 or 800,000. That makes a big difference.
And they
in
need
how
it to bridge their income
need
gap.
that to bridge the income to what you said earlier, to not run out in those retirement years.
Yeah. So when you're looking at retirement planning, it's really two things. It's talking about income and distributions, because it makes a great deal, a big factor is which account do I take the money out of?
Yeah. And what do you always
Right?
say, Ed? What do you need in retirement?
One thing, you can't retire without it, income.
Income. So it doesn't matter what your account grew to or what the rate of return is if you don't actually take distributions from that.
Right.
So there's this balancing act of, I don't want to take from an account that has lost money, but yet I still need a segment of my money to grow over time. And we talk about this, creating what we call a bucket plan for our clients, especially as they're getting ready to grow into retirement. So you have a bucket that satisfies those now needs. You have a bucket that satisfies upcoming needs in the soon future. And then you have those later bucket assets where you can try to go after more growth. And what we have found by doing that, we can create distribution plans that really mitigate the running out of money in retirement.
That makes me think, Ernst & Young just put a white paper out not that long ago. You guys are familiar with this. We can get this out to some of our listeners if you haven't got your fingers on this. But, they did tons of different iterations on how to increase the likelihood of people not running out of money. What's the best way to increase your outcomes in retirement with more confidence, certainty, and guarantees? And it was really striking to me. I mean, when they looked at all the different various tools that we could use for distribution planning, they really kind of came down to the cocktail of, if you have about 30% of your estate in cash value life insurance, 30% of your estate in a guaranteed lifetime income pension annuity to quell sequence of return risk, because you can never run out of money on that, and it's not correlated to the market. And then the other 30% can be more equity driven. That cocktail in that white paper seemed to provide the best confidence and certainty, not running out of money, avoiding sequence of return risk. Maybe we didn't touch upon taxation. That could be something else we talk about, but fascinating white paper from, one of the four largest accounting firms in the entire world.
Right.
Coming out with that evidence has been really compelling. Yeah. And I think for people, that's a good guideline. Maybe that doesn't work for everybody, but I think the point of it is the different types of accounts. And you talk about this a lot, of not just the diversification in your market-based portfolios, but the diversification in just the type of assets that you have.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's important to understand what those things can do. So even if it doesn't come down to that specific recipe, it's understanding what those different strategies could do so that you can utilize and mitigate things like sequence of return risk.
Exactly.
How do you create income? And there's different ways you can do it for different types of people, but it is a different methodology than just take 4% of the assets that I have.
Yeah.
It's a different methodology, and that's what we tend to focus on with our clients versus, hey, the 4% rule.
Yeah, what you were talking about there is, I say it all the time. There's our job is to mitigate or eliminate, and Ryan, you say this all the time, unnecessary risk. And when I talk about risk, this is another concept that people don't understand. There's asset class and there's true risk diversification. Asset class diversification is what 9 out of 10 people think about risk. Is, well, hey, I have all these mutual funds in my 401k or in this investment account. One's a balance, and I got a balance in international, high growth, large cap. Well, what do all of those things have in common?
Got some market risk associated.
They all have market risk associated. So, we're big believers on, once again, going back to that bucket planning, having appropriate assets
different
within
buckets
those
to do
different
different
buckets
things, right.
that have different levels of risk.
That's right. That's right.
And one thing I'm hearing across this whole conversation is the term planning, right? And we talk about this a lot when we meet with clients, and clients will say, "Oh, I'm too old," or "I've waited too long." When's the best time to start planning?
Yesterday.
Correct, right? It's not. You're never too old, because if you want to retire and you don't have a plan, it gets back to this question: will I run out of money?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know until we dig in and dive into what your financial picture is right now and what your objectives are.
And I wanted to say something on that is that there's a lot of gurus that are out there that their narrative is trying to fit a one size fits all box. And the reality is, and the truth is that every financial plan, every income and distribution plan has some different type of nuance to it.
Yeah.
And so you've got to recognize that as a consumer and make sure you're conjoining yourself with, planners and advisors that understand the nuances of a good plan.
Yeah.
And I mean, because that's going to help you mitigate those risks. It's not a one size fits all narrative that we hear a lot out there in our culture. So yeah, we gotta make sure that as consumers that we understand not only the risks but also the nuances to quell those risks.
Yeah.
And that comes with, like what Ed's saying, is it comes with strategic planning and a partnership with somebody that understands things like tax code and Social Security trust fund and things like this.
Yeah, the plan is not just I am 60 years old, so I go into a moderate type or a
And take
balanced
4%.
portfolio,
Yeah.
take 4%. There is distribution planning, when to
Correct.
take Social Security, how to take those distributions, what order do you take those distributions, and that's going to be different for everybody.
Yeah.
And so that plan, as you said, is really important.
Yeah. And those, if we can start with a plan and you're 20 years old, phenomenal. If you're 30 years old, hey, that's great too. 40, 50, 60. As Brian said, the best time to start a plan is yesterday. Don't think, I've waited too long, or I'm young enough, I don't really need to plan. In fact, we can get started earlier. It just makes the planning that much easier, in the long run.
That's
From
right.
that standpoint.
That's right.
So, well, we're going to wrap this one up, I believe, here, fellas. I think we've talked pretty much everything and said what we can say about that. At the end of the day, working with a financial professional, having a plan is extremely important to achieving long-term objectives and success and being able to address and answer that question. Will I run out of money?
It will make you sleep better.
Yeah, don't put it off, people.
Exactly. Peace of mind. So, hey, appreciate everybody coming out, listening in, and
Go
we will
Bucks.
see you next time. And go Bucks and Brownies, right? Anyone? Well, and BW. Sorry.
you. Thank you.
And BW.
Have a good day,
See y'all.
everybody.